Hello, my friend, this is Jono, and today I want to talk to you about viral social media. Now, we all know what this is, right? Somebody posts something to Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and it completely takes off. It gets tons and tons of likes and reshares. Now, most social media posts don't get that kind of response, okay? And I was curious, what is it that makes these viral posts become viral in the first place? So what I did is I went and analyzed hundreds and hundreds of different social media posts, and I've identified 5 key ingredients that are in most of them, and I want to share them with you today. And then this is going to be good food for thought for your own social media campaigns, okay? Now, this video is somewhat inspired by an experience I had recently where I posted something to Twitter and it kind of went pretty viral, okay? Now, this is the tweet in question. Let's first of all go down and take a look at the numbers here. So I put this out on January the 8th, 2022, which is a couple of weeks ago, and it's had so far 8,920 retweets, 254 quote tweets, and 47.3 thousand likes, okay? So a pretty impressive performance. Now, what is this tweet? Well, it's kind of just a funny image, really. I found this on Facebook. A friend of mine posted this on Facebook. There was no attribution as to who created this image, so I don't know who made it. But you know, you've got the scene at the top where somebody says both the vaccinated and unvaccinated can catch COVID, and then the response down here is both Serena Williams and I can play tennis, right? Now, because I didn't know who created the image, I just basically said, this is great. And I put it out there because I thought it was amusing, all right? Now, as I mentioned, I was kind of surprised by the response to this, because let me be clear with you, most of my social media doesn't get that kind of response. I mean, it does okay, but I'm generally not getting, you know, thousands and thousands of retweets at any one time. So I went and analyzed that tweet as well as a bunch of other tweets and Facebook posts and Instagram posts as well, and came up with these 5 ingredients. So let's get these on the board and we'll go through each of them one by one. And then at the end of this video, I'm actually going to give you some other examples as well to illustrate what I'm talking about, okay? So make sure you stick around for the rest of the video. So ingredient number 1 as to why a lot of these posts tend to perform like that and become viral is because they're topical, okay? In other words, they're about a topic or a subject that is relevant right now, something that's in the news, something that's impacting people right now, okay? So obviously right now, as I film this in January 2022, COVID is very much top of mind for people, okay? We're right now in the middle of this big Omicron wave that's kind of going all over the world. So anything about COVID and vaccines and whatever else is by definition topical in nature. But as you think about your social media, how does your business, your community, your mission, whatever it is, tie into what's happening in the world right now? Because if you can tie your content to that, then people are going to be searching and interested in that topic, and then it provides an opportunity for them to find your content and then to like it, reshare it, and things like that, okay? So this is obviously the case here with this one. Now, I want to make something very clear before I go on about this particular message, okay? I'm not interested in ideological debates, right? I've never really been into this. Like, there are some people who will while their free time on the internet away by just arguing and bickering with people about various ideological debates when it comes to medicine and software and politics and all kinds of different things. That's not me, not particularly interested, okay? So when I saw this image on Facebook, you know, this one right here, I thought this is kind of funny, but what I didn't want to do was to make a statement. I just wanted to say, hey, I think this is cool, right? Which is the reason why, you know, my content here in the tweet literally just says, this is great. That's it. I didn't make a big, you know, I didn't stand on a soapbox making a statement. Now, obviously, this post does take a position, right? I mean, you know, if you're an anti-vaxxer or you're skeptical about COVID, you're probably not going to retweet this, and you might not even like it, okay? So it's obviously got an opinion, and this rather neatly leads me to the second point here, is that I've noticed that with viral social media posts, that they're in addition to them being topical, they're also relatable. In other words, the viewer, the reader, can find something that reflects them in that, right? So if we go back to my one here, this is deeply relatable because everybody by definition is either vaccinated or unvaccinated, right? And most people in the world, I would argue, at least people who are going to be using social media platforms, have probably got some interest in COVID and the pandemic. So therefore, this kind of combo of topical and relatable is kind of a bit of a secret sauce, right? If you can post something on social media that is relevant and topical, and you can share a perspective and opinion that your audience can relate to, then it's going to be by definition somewhat interesting to them, okay? Now, the third ingredient that I've identified here is a lot of viral social media is entertaining. Did I spell that right? Yeah, entertaining. It's interesting, it's fun. Now, this is an interesting one because, pun intended, because entertaining doesn't just mean that you're talking about entertainment, right? It doesn't mean that you're talking about movies and films and music and books and whatever else, okay? It means that it's fun for someone to read and someone to engage with, right? Now that could mean that you're talking about something that traditionally wouldn't be considered entertaining, such as chartered accounting, right? But you're sharing your perspectives, your ideas, your points in a very entertaining way. You're using interesting language. You're telling jokes. You're not just putting information out on the internet. People aren't generally just interested in information. They're interested in being entertained while also gathering information. It's one of the reasons why people love documentaries. You know, if you watch a great documentary, it's not just that you're learning about the topic and what happened, but it's been assembled in such a way that keeps you interested and excited about that particular topic, okay? So if we go back to my message here, I mean, this is by definition entertaining for a couple of reasons. One is that there's like a movie, TV theme here with the picture, okay? Now, I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't know what movie or TV show this is from. So if you do know, please go and pop it in the comments, because I have no idea. In fact, I probably should have done my research before putting this video out. So if you do know, I'd like to know, pop it into the comments. But the other reason why I think this is entertaining is this play on the topic, right? It's basically saying, hey, there's clearly a very different experience with COVID, whether you're vaccinated or unvaccinated. And the example that we're illustrating this with is, you know, somebody who is an amateur or can't play tennis being compared to one of the great tennis players in history, Serena Williams, okay? So there's a joke, a TV, movie kind of tie-in. By definition, this becomes entertaining, okay? All right, now let's go on to our fourth ingredient here. And this is a lot of viral social media posts are visual in nature. And this means that there's an image or a video, something along those lines, that's kind of included in the message, right? So obviously with this one, this is visual. This has got an image attached to it, right? It's this big image. It's got clear, high contrast white text. It's big enough that it's easy to read on a phone, okay? And this is an important point about social media in general, is that from my experience and my analysis, including square images in social media posts or square videos, you will get a better response with your social media. And the reason for this is because social media is a interrupt-driven medium, okay? And what I mean by this is that if you think about when you typically will go and take a look at Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or something along those lines, you're typically in the middle of doing something else, right? You might be doing your email, you might be at work, you might be hanging out and your kids are down at the park and you're kind of keeping an eye on them. And you think, oh, I'll just get my phone out and I'll start scrolling through it. You don't necessarily sit down and think, I'm going to go and look at social media right now. You just kind of do it in the middle of something else. And therefore, as you're scrolling through it, you need something to catch your eye for you to actually consume the content. So if you see an interesting image that jumps out at you, and you think, oh, what's that? And then you go and read the post, it's the interesting image that pulls you in, right? So I can totally imagine that somebody who is a follower of mine was kind of looking through it and they saw this image and they're like, oh, what's that? And they go and read the text. And then, if they like it, then they either, if they like the image, if they found the joke funny, then they'll like it or they'll retweet it, for example, okay? So the visual element is really important. And it's not just what's in the image, it's definitely the size, okay? So make sure that when you put images up on social media that they're square. Now this is actually even a bit better because it's long. It's not like a rectangle. It's kind of like what is this shape? A rectangle on its side. I don't know. Put that in the comments. Okay. God. No research on my part today. It's this long image. And the reason why a square or a longer image is important is if you look at Twitter, for example, there's three sections here, 3 columns. You've got this bit over here, which is all of the kind of the menu. You've got the main content area here. And then you've got this area up here, which has got the search bar and then what's happening and the bio of the people who are in the message. So we want to take up the maximum amount of space inside of this middle gutter, or this middle section rather, so we can grab somebody's attention. Imagine if this was a rectangular image, it was half the size of this, just this top pane, but the whole image was in this rectangle, then first of all, you wouldn't be able to read the text, right? It would be very difficult to read the text, and everything would be kind of squashed up, and it wouldn't grab your attention, right? So this is the reason why it being square is absolutely critical. The other thing to point out here that's important is that this text is high contrast. It's white text on a darker background, okay? And high contrast imagery tends to jump out at people. You know, you can see that on mobile, you can see it on desktop, it's easy to read, and therefore people are more likely to click on it, okay? All right, now let's go on to our final ingredient here, okay? And this, and again, this is from me taking a look at various social media that's gone viral. And I was just trying to find like these commonalities in them. And that is that they're inherently shareable by definition, right? It's one thing to like something, but it's a whole other thing to then share it with your friends on the network. Either you share it on Facebook or, again, like on Twitter, you retweet it, whatever. Now you may be thinking, okay, well, how do I make my social media shareable, right? Well, the way in which you do this is you basically implement these 4 elements. If you create a bit of social media for any of these different networks that is topical, it's about something that's happening right now in the news, if it has a perspective or an opinion that people can relate to, if it's entertaining and fun to look at, and if it's got a visual component, by definition, chances are that is going to be shareable, okay? People are going to want to share it with their friends, okay? Arguably the most important element of this in terms of something being shareable is that it's relatable, right? Now, if you think about my post here, like I mentioned earlier on, you know, the kind of folks who are going to like this and reshare it are the kind of folks who are going to be in agreement with this message, who are generally of the view that, well, clearly your COVID experience is very different whether you're vaccinated or whether you're unvaccinated, okay? So generally people who will reshare something will agree with the sentiment or the perspective, or they'll find something particularly interesting in a piece of social media content that they'll want to put out there with other people, okay? So that's it. These are the 5 key areas. So as you're thinking about how to apply this in your world, what I would recommend you do is, first of all, identify, okay, well, what kind of stuff do I want to put out on there on social media? And how do I tie that into something that's happening right now in the news? How do I take a position that's going to be relatable to people? How do I make that really interesting? Really spice up the language. Don't just provide information. People don't want information. They want entertainment. Make sure that there's a visual component, a video, an image, an infographic, whatever there might be. There's tons and tons of like stock photo services out there that you can pay for, or you can go and create things with tools like Canva. It's super easy. And then when you do this, it's most likely then going to be pretty shareable. So let's look at another couple of examples of how these ingredients kind of tie in, right? So this one, what I did is I went and took a look at a couple of things that I've put out there, because here's the thing, right? Most of you watching this video are not going to have hundreds of thousands of followers or millions of followers, right? Most of us have hundreds or thousands or maybe tens of thousands of followers, okay? So for something to be viral, we only really need it to have like 20 or 30 or 40 retweets or, a couple of hundred likes, and it's doing pretty well. You're definitely kind of punching above your weight, okay? So a couple of these examples are definitely, like I said, the numbers are going to be lower because, this original one that I put out there, this was definitely a bit of an unusual one from my social media. But I do want to look at a couple and to see how these ingredients kind of relate. So this is one that I put out a little while ago. People often ask me to share my slides. I usually don't. A good presentation is 90% speaker, 10% slides. Most of my slides have a single picture, sentence, or diagram. They make no sense without me waffling in the background. Slides alone lose all context. Am I being a grouch, right? Now, this one has got a lot of likes, but it's not got a lot of retweets, okay? And part of the reason why I wanted to share this is to explain why I think that is. If we go back to the board, right? So it's not particularly topical. It's not about something that's in the news. However, it's very relatable to my audience. A lot of people who follow me on social media are people who are going out speaking at events. They're running businesses, they're running communities. So creating and producing and creating and delivering presentations at conferences and virtual events is very much part of their world, okay? It's not massively entertaining. So there's a little bit of that by talking about me waffling in the background. So it's kind of a bit looser language. But I am asking if I'm being a grouch. So I think that makes it a little bit more interesting. I think if I'd have left off, am I being a grouch, and I hadn't mentioned me waffling in the background, it would be quite boring. So I think that made it a little bit more interesting. It's not visual. There's no image attached to it whatsoever. So I think part of the reason why it hasn't been shared massively is because it misses some of these ingredients. However, I think part of the reason why it has got a bunch of likes is because people can appreciate and identify and relate with the content, which of course is this piece here. All right, so let's go back, let's take a look at another example here. So this is one that I put out in May 2019. There was something going on back then, I wish I could remember, about Spinal Tap. There was some news story, something was happening. Maybe it was an anniversary of the movie or whatever it might be. If you haven't seen Spinal Tap, it's a movie about kind of a mock band, and it's just really silly about them being on tour and making records and things like that. And I posted here, I just noticed that on the Spinal Tap IMDb page, the number of stars goes to 11. Class Act IMDb, Class Act, right? Now, obviously, mostly, on IMDb, things go up to 10. It goes up to 11 because in the movie, if you haven't seen it, basically what happens is the guitarist Nigel Tufnell is showing the documentary maker, it's a fake documentary, all of his guitars and amps, and he says, oh, that amp over there goes up to 11. And the documentary filmmaker says, why don't you just make 10 louder? And he's like, well, if it goes up to 11, right? So that's kind of the joke. So I thought this was really cool that IMDb do this. You can see it just here. So I just shared this. Obviously, this is a visual image. So if we go back to our ingredients, first of all, it was topical, right? Because something was going on around Spinal Tap back then. It's relatable because people will have seen the movie and they probably know the joke about going up to 11. It's clearly entertaining for two reasons. One is it's about Spinal Tap. Two is it's kind of a fascinating fact, right? That IMDb for this one movie goes up to 11. And people love trivia, right? So trivia is entertaining by definition. As I mentioned already, it's visual. And because of that, I think this made it much more shareable. And when we go and look at the stats, you can see it received 74 retweets, okay? Now let's look at another couple of examples here. This is one that I found today from Star Wars Holocron, whatever this is. Let's see. So 99,000 followers. I actually saw a similar post from somebody else that had a similar level of responses here, but you can see here 1,000 retweets, 63 quote tweets, and 6,800 likes. So pretty well performing post, basically saying James Earl Jones, it's his 91st birthday today as I film this. So this is going back to the list. It's clearly topical. Okay, it's relatable because people like him as an actor. They know him in lots of different movies, not just Star Wars. It's entertaining because it's about an actor. It's visual because we've got all of these different images in here of James Earl Jones. And because of that, it's inherently shareable because you'll be able to say, hey, isn't it cool that it's James Earl Jones's birthday? Because most people probably don't know that. Now let's look at our final example here. Whoever this is, Adria Defender, 1,400 followers here. And this is Metallica's 80s and 90s albums as planets. I just found this today. I thought it was kind of interesting. So those of you who are Metallica fans, tell me if you can guess what each of these are. If I was to guess, Kill 'Em All, Ride the Lightning, and Justice for All, Master of Puppets, Load, Reload, or maybe the other way around. The others I'm not Black Album. The others I'm not entirely sure about. If you know the rest of these, by the way, go and put them in the comments because I'd love to figure out what all of these are. But going back to the ingredients, this is topical because right now Metallica are celebrating their 40th anniversary, I think it is. They just played a couple of dates in San Francisco. This year is their big anniversary for them, so there's been lots of reissues and documentaries and things like that. It's relatable. If you're interested in Metallica, then seeing all of these albums represented as planets is kind of interesting. It's therefore entertaining. Of course, it's visual because we can see this image, nice big image. Again, it's a long image, so it takes up a bunch of the screen if you're scrolling through. And because of that, it makes it pretty shareable as well, okay? So that's it. Those are, in my mind, the 5 key ingredients to what helps social media become viral, okay? So I'd love to hear what you think. Be sure to go and get your thoughts down in the comments, get any questions down in the comments. Always happy to help. Make sure you hit that like button because that really helps my channel out. And of course, make sure you tap that little subscribe button and of course that cheeky little notification bell because that will notify you when more of my videos come out, okay? And I love to put videos out about how to build audiences and communities and all kinds of fun stuff. All right? Peace out.